the first thing is I want to dedicate this year to Rini Molko, Bas Boliza, and Yosef Reuven, that the merit of the Shiur should go for the Aliyas Neshama of both of these people, Rini Molko, or Rini Molko Bas Boliza, and Yosef Reuven, and the merit of the Shiur, and all the people that are going to listen to it should really elevate these two people in Gan Eden. I've been informed that Rini Molko is a Sephardi, but she's more than a Sephardi, she's a Syrian. And I find it very poetic, if you want to use that word, as that is I'm giving this year to a bunch of lovely Syrian women. So I find that very interesting, Anyway. And I want to mention also, somebody just informed me that the, what's that called, the diagram? The mural of George Floyd was destroyed by lightning.
Yes. Oh, today?
Yes? I want to tell you why. Now, want to hear?
Yes.
I'm not going into George Floyd, who he was, what he was, but obviously he was whatever, he clearly was a low-class criminal, whatever, but whatever that is. Of course, obviously what happened to him was terrible. I mean, the person who did that to him, this officer, exhibited unbelievable cruelty. You don't do that. You don't do that to an animal, let alone to a human being, somebody who's created in the image of God. So there's no question about that. So what is the odds that lightning will strike a mural? I never heard of it before. And the answer, I'll tell you something very interesting, which most people do not realize. You can fool people in this world, because this world is a world of deception. It is a world of illusion. It's really what it is. We don't know what's going on, really. Nobody knows who's who, what's what. Everybody puts on the act. We all know that, because we all have an act that we put on when we're in public. So that's the truth of this world. But I want to tell you something. Once you die and you get to the other world, there's no more illusions. Everything is governed by truth, you see. Now, when somebody arrives in that world, the last thing he wants is people committing terrible deeds, sins, in his name. Why? Because people here don't know that, but in heaven, they say, hey, every deed that is committed, deed which is either a crime or a sin or something immoral, whatever, that is committed in your name, guess what? You get the credit. You are part of that sin. So therefore, we have to increase the heat, whatever that is, right? So that soul is saying, please, don't do this to me. So instead of honoring this man, in the world of truth, he is being destroyed, dishonored. Now, we don't understand that. We don't see that. But he does. Wherever his soul now lies, he's in front of God. You can't fool the angels. You can't fool God. You see? So I'm sure that he begged God. And he says, listen, whatever I have, I don't know how many merits I have. I don't know if I have any merits. Or maybe I do have a lot of merits, whatever it is. You see? I mean, a merit, we don't realize how easy it is to collect merits. If he called up his mother and said, hi, Mom, that's a tremendous merit. You see, we would say, a big deal. But let's keep it over aim. Honor your father and mother. We don't realize the depth and the astounding extent of that reward. You see? So he's probably standing in front by God and saying, listen, whatever I have merit, something, right? Nobody comes up there completely bankrupt, right? In the merit of what I did, please stop that. Because their allegiance and their worshiping to that mural is destroying me. So God said, okay, you have enough merits. And guess what? A lightning bolt comes down and destroys the mural. In order to save George Floyd, it's astounding when you think about that. That it saves him from further punishment and suffering in the next world. You see, people do not understand. Honesty, or I should say, dishonesty has a price. So you want to be dishonest in this world, you want to make believe, fool around, deceive everybody, It's up to you. You cannot pull that stunt in the heavenly domain. And up there, if something is done in your name, a deed, an evil deed, a sin, something immoral or whatever, and it's done for your memory in your name, guess what? It's attributed to you because he's doing it because of you. And what God does, and people don't realize, is God is a God of justice, absolute justice. That means this. If somebody writes a book, right, and in that book it's a terrible book, filled with blasphemy and atheism and all kinds of sexual perversions, whatever, and we know this, the literature's filled with this stuff, right? And somebody 100 years later reads that book and is influenced to do a sin, guess what? Then they yank the guy out wherever he is 100 years later, and they said, excuse me, somebody just committed a sin in your name. Guess what? Downward you go. Or whatever the appropriate punishment is. We don't realize how absolute judgment is. So judgment is not if you commit a sin. Judgment is if you have contributed in any way, even if it's minuscule. You see? The amount that you attributed or that it's attributed to you, God knows exactly how much that is, what the measure is, and you suffer. So, if you want to know who destroyed that mural, it's George Floyd. Nobody else. George Floyd. People do not understand what that means. And that is why, it is, the Congress of the United States, especially the House, has no idea of the punishment that they all will receive. Why? Because they make laws that actually cause people to sin. To sin. It's incredible. You know? Like, I feel sorry. Actually, I don't feel sorry because I cannot believe the evil. The Supreme Court Justice who retired, Anthony Kennedy, he's the one who said, 2015, I think it was Shiur, that same-sex marriages, same-gender marriages, right, is validated and legalized by the Constitution itself, thereby making it impossible to overturn that unless you have the majority of the state legislatures or whatever. That doesn't happen. How often has that happened in the 200 years, whatever, history of the United States? Therefore, everybody who sins, could you believe this? It is laid at his doorstep. Because he legitimatized, legalized that type of union, he now suffers immeasurably because he is now held guilty because he contributed to everybody. Even though he didn't do it, and he didn't tell him to get married, to a guy, girl, whatever, it's all right. It doesn't make a difference. We do not know how much can be attributed to a guy or a woman, right, in this world once he's gone. No, he's one of the most sorrowful people you could ever see. I cannot even begin to fathom his punishment because he didn't just influence one person. He influenced the entire 330 million Americans. And that's not all. Then what about all the people in the world that copycat America, right? Because America's a beacon. Yes, we cannot even begin to understand. That's him. And then there's another character called Niels Gorsuch. I'm naming names. He has no idea what's going to happen to him. Why? Because what he said was incredible. He said, wait a minute, there's same-gender marriage. But what determines your gender? So he said a guy can decide, or a woman can decide. You see? But that's terrible. What do you mean you could decide? You can go against your own biology, And Cuomo was another character that's going to be slain. He's got other cheshbonos, reckonings. He killed 15,000, nursing home patients and so on, But he has no idea. So he said you could determine. That means a man says, I'm not a man, I'm a woman. Oh, I want to say what Cuomo. So Cuomo signed a law that you can put down whatever gender or sex you are on your birth certificate. You believe this? It's up to you. Forget about your biology. It's irrelevant, right? So what does that do? That means a guy can say, right? I'm giving you an example. I'm a girl. I'm a woman. That's what I want to be. Meanwhile, since he's a woman, right, who's he going to marry? He'll marry a guy because he's a girl, right? Bam, there you are. Mishkav Zochar. You realize what that does, physicist? America, and I'm going to talk about what it's really doing. That's what this Shiur is about. What it's doing to America, and what the Churban is really all about. Tisha B'Av. That's what it's about. And you will be, I think, stunned by the information. But in any case, so this is what I have to say about people who don't realize. Now, it's vice versa. What happens if you write a book that people love to listen to, and because of that, they become more spiritual? So every single mitzvah that was done because of your influence, you are rewarded. You have no idea what that means. And the guy could live 200 years later. I mean, you think of certain people like Rashi. Everybody who learns Gemara or Chumash, right, Torah, learns Rashi. So therefore, could you believe what this man is collecting in Olam Haba, even though he's dead from 1065? No, 1065? 1165. He was born in 1040. And he died in 1040. Anyway, could you believe what he is collecting? No, you can't. That's why I say, Kiruv is an incredible profession. Because if you influence somebody to become religious and does mitzvahs, that means he and his wife, his kids, and all his generations until the end of time, right? This person will receive reward for every mitzvah that has been done because of his influence. And that's only one person. You believe how that if you started the ball rolling 1,000 years ago, right? And people are doing mitzvahs because of you can't believe what they're going to give you in the next world. And you're going to say to God, you turn around and say, wait a minute, I didn't do this. Like, what is this? And God says, no, you're wrong. You did do this. But you have a short memory. You think that the only thing you get rewarded for is what you did. You have no idea. Because I count, and I'm the one who's the concept of justice. And the truth is, that is justice. Every person that you influence to do the good, you collect. Unbelievable, isn't it? Yeah. So anyway, I got started this with George Floyd. But anyway, that's a very important people that I was saying, because you have the House and the Congress and the Senate and so on, they don't realize that if they pass a law that allows people to die, right? I'll give you an example. The border is out of control. There's a tremendous amount of drugs entering the border. We know that. The ones who are making all the money is the cartel. Yeah. But wait a minute. Who's responsible for that? That means that when a drug comes into the United States and it's then it's sold on the streets of New York, right? And somebody takes it and begins to commit crimes in order to feed its habit, right? Then the one who could stop that, forget about the guys coming in. They are directly responsible. You know who's responsible too? Good old President Biden. Because he's the one that's allowing this. And who also is responsible? The House. Well, Kamala Harris, certainly. The House and the Senate. We don't realize God looks at the people responsible to the nth degree. We cannot even figure out how far that goes. So it comes out that all those guys in the House and the Senate, with Harris and Biden, right, with his whole staff, whoever advised him not to do anything, they have no concept of the punishment that awaits them. Why? Because that's justice. Justice is not only to the perpetrator, but it's for every person that was influenced by that perpetrator. Believe this? I'm not even talking about their own sins. And believe me, none of them are angels, right? But I'm talking about, because God said, so the guy's going to say, I didn't do this. I didn't sell the guy drugs. Come on. So God said, excuse me, you are the cook in the kitchen. You're the one that can control. You put yourself in a position of responsibility, right? That you can make laws. Where's the law? That's the thing that kills them. What they really should all do, like they say, if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. If you are going to be evil, if you are not going to do your job, if you're going to take bribes and do whatever other kind of motives, then get out of the house. It's not worth it. It is not worth it. Because when they come after you, there is nothing in creation that can stop justice once it decides that you are guilty. That's a nice word of warning. Anyway, but in any case, so that's really very important, how far it extends. And like I say, it extends for good also. Unbelievable. You can influence one person to do one mitzvah. I remember I went to speak many years ago to give a Shiur on Lashon Hara, Shmiras HaLashon. It was a long trip, a real schlep, but I went anyway. And I remember before the Shiur started, there was a sign on the wall about a mikvah, because they were raising money for a mikvah. So they quoted the Chafetz Chaim. And here's what he said. This is the Chafetz Chaim, of which we cannot even imagine what his future world looks like. We can't imagine. Here's the author of the Chafetz Chaim Shmiras HaLashon, the author of so many others from, the author of the Mishnah Berurah. I mean, we don't even know what his reward possibly can be. So here's what he writes. Astounding. He writes this. He says, if there was a person in Europe, apparently, who was responsible for building mikvahs, he used to go around, raise money, a tremendous hand in building mikvahs and so on. So the Chafetz Chaim writes this. He says, if this person got one woman in his whole life to go to a mikvah once, right? So the Chafetz Chaim writes, I am jealous of his reward.
That's a lie.
I think even the machine was done. Am I okay now?
Yeah.
You believe what this man wrote? That he is jealous of the reward of that one guy who got one woman to go once in her life to a mikveh. Right? So for me it was tremendous, because I said, look how far I've schlepped to give a shiur on Shmiras HaLashon, Lashon Hara, which stops the redemption and so on, Wow. So I derived a lot of, encouragement, and that was great, But we don't know the reward of one mitzvah at all, you see? So just like we don't know the reward of one mitzvah, we do not know the severity of the punishment. Even if a person contributed or influenced, somebody who lived 800 years later, but he did the sin because of that guy, you don't want to know what this guy's going to get,
I have a question.
Of course.
Can you talk with him? You can hear me.
Yeah.
So my question is, how we have our name at the end of an Amidah? You're supposed to say, like the name of your name.
Yeah.
So isn't that has to do with so that you get judged on your own merits and sins versus, because if you say Lashon Hara, you take on other people's sins.
Yeah, that's a chayvus chavos, yeah.
Right, so isn't that one of the reasons why we say our name, so that we get up to the Shamayim, they say your soul knows its name because you said it constantly after the Amidah?
Yes, well the reason why you...
And then you only get what you... No?
No, that could be a reason.
Right.
But there are many reasons why.
Does it have anything to do with how far it extends of your mitzvah and all that, so that you get what you allotted?
There could be many reasons. I'm not going to get into that. One of them could be that when you say your name at the end of Shemona Esrei, that's what people do, right?
Right.
So that's how you remember your name. So on the day of judgment, you'll be able to say your name. You don't forget it. Anyway, right. But another idea could be is that when you say your name, right, that means you identify with the body of Israel. So that's really what it is. When you say Amy Bas... So
I say the pasuk,
that shows that you are part of the body of the Jewish people. And that has incredible significance, of which I will actually talk about. Okay? Anyway. Now, I'm going to start the shiur. That was just a prelude. Or I should say, a warm-up. A warm-up, right? In baseball, we talk about warm-ups, right? Anyway, people are very confused, obviously, right? And what's going on today is hard to believe. I'll tell you why. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on, which I'll mention, but the critical thing is that how could a country in January 19th, 2021, have acted one way, and then the day Biden came in on January 20th, completely reversed itself, has become a nation of incredible sinners? How does that happen? And not only that, the acceleration is mind-boggling. You know, I mean, we are now in July. We can't believe what's going on. You see? So the question is, what in the world does that mean? You see? Obviously, something is going on. The question we have to ask is, what is the divine agenda? What is God doing? This isn't simple. You know, what God is doing is not to one person. He's doing it to 330 million people. And it's not just to them, because what America does has an influence on the entire world. Because everybody wants to copy America, right? We know that. America's a model in many ways. So the question is, what is God doing? How do we understand that? And therefore, what I would like to do is share what I think is going on. Really what's going on. Okay? So therefore, I'm going to talk about the Churban of America, right? The destruction of America. And then I'm going to go into the Churban of the Jewish people, you see? Because there's something happening to the Jews also. 3 months have passed. Iyar, Sivan, and Tammuz. And in each month, Jews have died. Right? Iyar was Meron. Right? Sivan was Colleen stolen when those breaches collapsed. You know? And then we now have Surfside, Florida. And it's all Orthodox Jews. I mean, that's the incredible thing. It's not just Jews, it's Orthodox Jews. What is God telling us? That is the question. So we now are involved in the midst of Churban, which is a very important wake up. The question is, for what reason? Now, only a Novi, a true prophet, can tell us exactly what God has in mind. That's it. It is given over to a prophet to be able to reveal this. But I like to think sometimes that God doesn't want to hold it just for prophets. Sometimes he'll spill the beans to regular people. I like to think that, you know. So I'm going to try to talk about what I think God has spilled. You know, I don't know why he spilled it to me, but I would like to talk about that, and you'll see the logic of this. So I'm going to talk about two Churbanos, okay? America and the Jewish people. You should know one thing, as a general rule. As a general rule. When suffering happens to the Jewish people, it's not punishment, it is atonement, which is a different concept than punishment. And the second concept, right, is not only an atonement for the Jewish people, it's also a tikkun. Why? Because the Jews are expected to trust God, to believe in God and trust God. Trust God means gamzu tova. This too is for the good. Comes out that when you are punished or you suffer, that's actually a situation in which you're tested. And if you stand that test, right, and you say, well, I don't, what's happened to me is very bad, whatever, but in some way it's for my benefit. If it wasn't, God wouldn't do this, you see. So therefore, if a person then trusts God, then he has elevated that suffering into an incredible stage of spirituality. Way of looking at it. But that's really what he's done. Okay? Good. But when it happens to Goyim, it's a punishment. You see? It is true that when they suffer, the punishment alleviates the suffering. But there's no tikkun involved. That's the difference. You see, because the tikkun means where you bring the presence of God back into the world. In any case, how do we understand the Churban of America? That's exactly what it is, the Churban of America. And I'll tell you something interesting. Here's the way we understand it, okay? The Mabul, the flood that destroyed the generation of Noah. Why? Because the world was unbelievably amoral and corrupt. Terrible. And like I once mentioned in the previous year, the world had descended to Mendel Tumah. They had descended to the 49 levels of defilement, you see. But worse than that, you see, because there is a Medrash Rabbi, which says an incredible thing. It says, obviously there's a whole humongous argument going on. Should we destroy the world or not? Wow, destroy the world. You could believe that there was an unbelievable debate going on. So what sealed the fate? Because what happened was, the Medrash says, on the Doha Mabul, the reason why the decree was finalized, stamped, sealed, signature, stamped and sealed or whatever, right, is because if a man would marry another man or an animal, he had to write a ksuba, a document of his responsibilities, which formalized and legalized that union. You believe this? That would seal their fate. So God said, listen, you want to do these kind of things in the closet? Okay, so it's a sin. You want to legalize this? It's over. That means it's now become a true alternative lifestyle. And not only alternative, it's a preferred lifestyle. Because now, everybody's thinking about it. Say, why not? It's legal. On the contrary. And God will not tolerate that particular sin. Why? Because that's the end of the world. Obviously. If men are marrying men, women are marrying women, whatever happens to the next generation. Right? Therefore, God will not tolerate sins which destroy his civilization. Because the whole point is to keep going. Okay? So that's the Mabul. And we now know why. For this particular sin. In fact, what's interesting is it's a Talmud Yerushalmi where somebody met Eliyahu Hanavi, Elijah the prophet, and said to him, why do earthquakes happen? Right? So Eliyahu Hanavi said, because of homosexuality. That's why. That's what he answered him. So the question is, I understand that it's a sin, right? But why an earthquake? You know what the answer is? Because what is an earthquake? What's the thing we always rely on to be stable? The ground, right? When the ground gives way, it's over. Because what are you going to stand on? Right? The ground is the essence of stability and sameness. So homosexuality is a destruction of stability. That's the end of the world. Because where's the next generation going to come from? You see how it's midah keneged midah, measure for measure? How an earthquake is the proper punishment for that type of sin, homosexuality. And once I tell you this, Korach, what killed him? An earthquake. Why? And it wasn't just an earthquake. This was an earthquake that followed him. No scientist has ever seen it before. It followed him, and it was called a customized earthquake, which is unheard of, right? Why? Why an earthquake? And the answer is, because what Korach do? He questioned Moshe Rabbeinu's authority. You see? So he said, of course I know God gave you the Torah. But I'm sure there are many things that you slipped in that were your ideas and not God's. Because everybody will always contribute. Right? And now you know why it says so many times in the Torah, right? And Moshe did exactly as God commanded. You ever notice why it says so many times? Almost after every mitzvah, it says Moshe did what God commanded. Why? To tell you that he didn't add an iota of anything to counter the whole argument of Korach. So why was Korach swallowed up by an earthquake? Right? Because if he's questioning the authenticity, right, of Moshe Rabbeinu, right, the fact that God gave Moshe the Torah is the stability, the authenticity that we rely on. That's why we observe the Torah. We're not going to observe something if Moshe Rabbeinu made it up himself. So Korach was destroying the authenticity of the Torah. Because every time you look at a mitzvah, you say, I wonder who made this. Was it God or was it Moshe? You'd never know. And guess what? Since nobody wants to really do the mitzvahs, you have to self-sacrifice. Guess what? We believe that everything was made by Moshe Rabbeinu. You see? So that's why the earthquake. Because the earthquake is the symbol of stability, authenticity. It's rock solid, as they say. You see? So Korach was challenging the authenticity of the entire Torah by questioning Moshe Rabbeinu. Very important concept. So therefore what killed him was an earthquake. The stability that we all have, you want to uproot the stability, right? I'm going to let that kill you. A very interesting concept, Everything that happens is always for a profound reason, never by accident, Anyway, so that's why the Mabul happened. God destroyed the entire planet. I mean, talk about a severe judgment. You don't get more severe than that, because what God did is He just didn't destroy society. He killed everybody. And He not only killed everybody, except Noah and his sons and the wives and so on, but He destroyed civilization. That is the greatest damage you can do to this planet. Right? Now, so that's what He did. So when Noah came out of the Teva, right, Noah comes out and God swore, took an oath, that He would no longer do this, that it will not cease. What does that mean? That He may kill people, but it's going to be on a country level, not the whole planet. So He's not going to kill everybody, He's not going to destroy civilization. And He's not going to destroy the whole society of America, of the entire world. But He can do it to an individual country. And that's why Egyptians made a terrible mistake. Because, that's why they wanted why did He want all the kids to be drowned in the Nile, right? Because He was afraid the Mashiach was born. That's what the astrologers told him. So why water? Because He said, well, water, God is not going to destroy the world through water, because He took an oath. So therefore, I will kill the Messiah through water. He thought He can get away with it. But He didn't realize something, that God swore not to destroy the entire earth, but He can take out one nation. He made a fatal error in His Cheshbon. And of course, the Yamsuf destroyed him, the whole Egyptian army. Well, he actually lived. The whole Egyptian army. And also destroyed Egypt, whatever. In any case, you see? Now, does God do this? Will He destroy a nation? Yes, He will. I'll give you one classic example. In America, in 2005, Katrina. Remember that? On Monday, the hurricane hit. On Tuesday, right, went over the walls, because New Orleans is really below ground, right? And they got walls. It's like what do you call that? Holland, the dikes, the dams, the dikes, whatever, right? And on Wednesday, wiped out New Orleans. It took them years to build. So I remember I said to myself, what in the world is this? God just took out the whole city. It wasn't a person or two. So I remember I was reading, I think God just sent that to me to know, where it said that on Wednesday of that week, they were going to celebrate Southern Decadence Day. That's the name of the holiday. They call it Southern Decadence Day, which is an annual thing that New Orleans celebrates. What can that be? You can imagine what that means. Decadence, which means that you can commit any sexual perversion, and the police will do nothing. And it's done publicly. They celebrate that. They say, okay, for today, everything goes. So you have all kinds of homosexuals and lesbians, you name it, going on in the streets, certainly in the homes. On that day, nobody's prosecuted. That was Wednesday. So I said, there you are. This is why God destroyed the earth. So He didn't destroy America, He destroyed New Orleans. Katrina is a mini Mabul. Isn't that interesting? That's what it is, the mini Mabul. In fact, it was water. Just like He destroyed Egypt. So we actually saw, the actualization of God's, oath not to destroy the whole world, but He destroyed a city. And I remember then I was very worried, because that means God will not stop to destroy a city. He's up to cities already. He's not afraid, in that sense, Anyway, so Katrina is a real example of God going after that place. You see? Any case. Now, America. What has happened to America? Like I said, the two people responsible in many ways is not just in 1969, I don't know if you remember, there was a bar, Stonewall Bar. Well, anyway, the Stonewall Bar, and that's when all of a sudden all the gay people exploded, and they made a riot, and that was the beginning of the acceptance of this way of life. You see, in 1969, and so on. Anyway, it's very interesting. Therefore, it began to grow. The problem was, how was it legalized? So like I said, in June of 2015, Anthony Kennedy was a deciding vote. The 4 liberals were one way, and the other 4 conservatives were the other way, obviously. So Kennedy was the deciding vote, Anthony Kennedy, and he voted and he made it constitutional. He came up with this absolutely crazy concept that it's validated by the Constitution. And people are saying, I don't understand, for hundreds of years, nobody ever interpreted the Constitution that way. And you do? You have the gall to do this? And change what hadn't been done in over 200 years, whatever? Yes, he did that. Like I said before, he had no idea what's coming to him. But anyway, once he made it constitutional, forget it, it's over. So now it's legalized and it's legitimate. And today, and then the next guy came on was Neil Gorsuch, who said that, well, what gender are you? You decide. And you cannot discriminate a guy who decides he's a woman. You can't discriminate. It's illegal, right? He actually made that, Neil Gorsuch, the great conservative that Trump put in. Terrible. Now it's blatant and it's all over the place. Very important concept. And not only that, I don't know myself, but people tell me that he has now become, I think the word is quiche, whatever. Chic. Chic means it's in style. Yes. It's now become in style to have a same-sex partner. That's why I'm not aware myself. And so, but people said that it has now become, if you're among this type of society, even modern people, secular, hey, wow, you actually got a same-gender partner? Wow, you're somebody, and so on, Cool, yeah, that's the word, cool. In any case, this is what's happening. Now, what do we know? God's not going to stand for this. Why? People don't understand. There's a God in the world. He's not going to stand for this while they destroy America, because that's what happens. Now, if you discriminate, if you don't bake a cake for 2 guys that want to get married, yeah, with the whole court, the Supreme Court, and so on. So what they're doing is destroying America, which is very bad, because America, like I said, is the model and the beacon for the entire world. And they just had a parade, terrible, in Israel, Eretz Israel, and they say that there was over 100,000 people in that parade, right? In Israel, in Tel Aviv. And somebody also told me, I think it's true, I don't know, is that Yair Lapid now has taken the flag of these guys, the rainbow flag, and he's now put it among the flags in the Knesset, in the front of the Knesset.
They also decreed in Israel that if you want surrogate mothers to carry your baby for same-sex marriages, they just approved it.
Approved it, yeah. This is very bad because it means Jews are now falling in line. We know God is not going to be served of this. Question is, what's he going to do? What's he going to do? He's going to flood he's not going to flood the United States, although there are very interesting things that are going on. For instance, one of the things going on is the heat wave in the west, north and southwest. They are breaking all kinds of heat waves, 108 degrees in many places, and they're frying out there, and so on, But that's not even really what it is. Question is, we expect some type of response. Now, I sometimes worry because there's certain very earthquake-prone places in the United States. California. San Andreas Fault, yeah. If that ever splits, and they always expect every 100 years or something like that, you know, I think it was 1908 or 1904, San Francisco destroyed San Francisco, you know. And we know that the punishment is an earthquake. Now, I don't think it will happen because of the merit of all the Jews doing mitzvahs and learning Torah in California. California is not a simple place. L.A. and so on, there's a lot of Torah being learned there, so I don't think it's going to happen. But listen, you worry because you know that this is what can happen. But God did something else. Absolutely brilliant. He's destroying America. What you're looking at is the marble. This is it. Well, how did he do it? Let me repeat that. America is being destroyed. We see that. Progressives, the liberals, right? It's being destroyed, taken apart, right? You can't even believe what when you go to New York, Manhattan, you can't even believe what San Francisco, when you Portland, Oregon, and so on, you know? That's really the marble. Why and how? So it's just incredible. Okay. In order to understand, you have to know this. We know that in the Torah there's Esav, which I've said many times. Esav gave rise to Edom. Edom is his nation. Edom, as the Gemara, that's the Torah says, Esav zu Edom. The Torah says that Edom is Rome. Right? Gemara says that. Edom zu Romi. We're not getting into the historicity. Anyway, and Rome became Christianity. Christianity is Edom, right? Without getting into that. And what is interesting is that's Edom, right? And Edom today is Western civilization, which is basically Christian. That's really what it is. So we live in Edom. We live in America, and so on. But there are three parts to Edom, you see, as the Torah shows us who Esav was. The first part of Esav, I once mentioned this a long time ago, is what? Is Russia. Russia is the worst part of Esav. It's called the evil of Esav extreme, because they're atheists, they enslaved their population. Terrible what they did to the Russian population, you know. So that's the worst part of Esav. That's Vayives Esav es HaBechira. And Esav despised the birthright, the arrogance of this man. That's communism. It's really what it is. The next part of Esav, which is also evil, but not as bad as Russia, right, communism and so on, right, is Europe. Europe killed more people in the name of Christianity than all wars combined. It was incredible what they did. You know, they tell you, you know, if somebody hits you, you turn the other cheek. But of course, they forget to tell you it's your cheek that they turn. Right? That's what Christianity is. It's a pseudo-religion in many ways. I'm not even going into, you know, who he was and so on and so forth. But it's a very violent religion. The history shows us it's been violent. You're talking about the pogroms. It's Christians. The Inquisitions. Christians. You see, all of it, it's basically the Crusades. It's all Christianity. Making war with the world and so on, you see. It's a violent religion. Fortunately, today it's not as violent because of a thing called democracy. Democracy has curbed Christianity. So it's interesting. That's why God put it as a muzzle against Christianity. Well, who knows what would go on, so on. So therefore, Europe is the bad part of Esav. So Russia is the evil part of Esav, the worst. And Europe is the bad part, bad news. That's Christianity. And America is what? It's a good part, because America is into pleasure. You see? So the Tov Shebesav, in many ways, is America. But guess what? America also has its share of bad and evil, doesn't it? It has people in America who are bad, you know? And then it has people in America who are evil, you see, which parallels Russia and Europe. But the majority of America is good. That's an important idea. What we realize now is part of Esav, and so on. Three parts, like I said, you know. Three parts of locations, and therefore 3 parts of Esav. So, God wants to stop America, you see. Now, God has always been concerned with America. Why? Because America is really a decent country. It's founded on principles of liberty, equality, and so on. Of course they've committed many sins, but by and large, it's a good country. It's very fair. In many ways, in a certain sense, it's very righteous. America gives an enormous amount of foreign aid all the time, and so on. It has freedom, it respects human values, human life, and so on. However, there is a bad part of Asa, even in America and so on, So therefore, what God has done is an astounding thing. Until now, we had the good part of Asa. That was the head of America. And like I say, the one who represented the good part of Asa, the Tosh of Asa, is Trump. And I've maintained a long time that Trump is a messianic figure. He's not the Messiah, but he is a figure that contributes to that. Because what he's done for America and what he's done for the Jewish people, is astounding. It's incredible. Been a tremendous president, you see. In any case, but all of a sudden his reign was overthrown. And I explained why, you see. Because the problem is that America has now descended into the 49th level of tumah, of defilement. And therefore God has to stop the defilement. So what God is doing, right, he has to bring the Mashiach. Because there's no other way to stop the sliding into the 50th level. And therefore, what he has to do is bring the Mashiach. It's called the restart button. But the problem is that Jews don't deserve the Messiah. Too many sins. You see? So what's God going to do? He has to stop it, press the restart button, and bring the Mashiach. But he can't because Jews don't deserve it. There's massive prosecutions in heaven by the Satan, the against the Jews having the Messiah. Because they don't deserve it. So God says, you're right. Here's what I'll do. I'm going to stop the messianic progress, and I'm going to kick Trump out, and I'm going to allow something else to come in its place to bring an atonement to the Jews. The atonement really to the Jewish people in many ways. They're going to suffer. But while I'm doing that, I'm going to punish America. I'm going to bring them to Mabul. Same time. It's a duality. You see? The Jews are suffering because of a lot of things going on, but the whole America is being punished with the equivalent of a Mabul. That's what God is doing. And I mentioned in Egypt it was the same thing. Moshe Rabbeinu came, right? And he came because it was the 49th level of defilement. And if they slipped into the 50th, they could not be redeemed. So Moshe Rabbeinu came. But lo and behold, after he came, it got worse. Much worse. Because Pharaoh decreed, right? He decreed a entire straw, that they now have to gather straw. Besides build, they also have to gather, so it became much worse after he came. Same ideas. It's because Moshe Rabbeinu was the Mashiach, came, the Jews did not deserve a messianic redemption, therefore God had to give an atonement, a kapora, so it got much worse. And then when that was over, God slammed the whole Egypt with the 10 plagues. The exact same thing is happening now. Okay? So he stops Trump because God wants to bring the Mashiach. But what's he doing? But at the same time, it's called you double up. What he's going to do is bring a marvel to America. You see. And therefore, at the same time that it's a kapora for the Jews, it's going to be a destruction to America. How? So God looks at Asa. Remember, America really has 3 parts to Asa, doesn't it? It has the good part of Asa. It has the bad part, which is what Europe was. But it has the incredible evil part. Really bad people. It's Russia. It's communism. And he says, I will give them dominion over America. The evil part. Who are they? The liberals. The Democratic Party, progressives, they are the evil of Asa, not merely the bad of Asa. You see? Soros, what? Soros is an Arab.
The name of the voting machines that they're saying we're changing the votes is named Dominion.
Dominion. Yeah. So what God did is astounding. He gave dominion to the evil of Esau, which is equivalent to Russia? Communism. Isn't that what they want to make America into? Do you notice what's happening? What you are looking at is the Mabul. But instead of water, he has unleashed the evil part of Esau to destroy America. Mabul. Brilliant. So America is destroying itself. Doesn't need water. Doesn't need an external idea. It is destroying itself. But God never allowed the evil part to dominate. He allowed the bad part to dominate, but never the evil part. Because the bad part, who's the bad part? I don't say names. It's like, Hillary Clinton. The Clintons, all those kind of people, and all the really, the bad people, But they don't want to destroy America, make it communist. They don't want to do that. That's not bad. That's evil. You see the difference? Okay. Let's take a look at what these people want to do. Okay? And then you begin to realize, wait a minute. This isn't the bad part of Esau. This is the evil part of Esau. How's that happen? That's the Mabul. What do they want to do? You take a look at what they want to do. You can't believe this is a destruction of the United States. 1, defund the police. How do you defund the police when that's the only thing standing between you and the criminal trying to rob you or kill you? Defund the police? That's insane. Only insane, mad people can come up with that, right? Then they have what's called the no bail law. Are you crazy? Okay, certain people should not have bail. Fine. But you don't let criminals act, hardcore criminals, murderers or whatever, with no bail. Well, of course you're crazy. You see? And then there's no prosecution. The DAs of many cities have decided that they are not going to prosecute. That's why in San Francisco, some guy came into Neiman Marcus, I think, took a bag, he just put stuff into his bag, as long as it didn't total. Yeah, looting is allowed. No. As long as it's not $1,000. So you can imagine a guy can hit every store, every Target in San Francisco. I mean, is this insane? Obviously, you're giving them a green light to do anything they want. No prosecutions, and there are many other misdemeanors that they're making that they're not prosecuting. You see? And there's a tremendous rise in crime. It's like in one weekend, I think July 4th, there was 100 shootings in Chicago. This is normal. Everywhere you look, crime has increased by 50%. I heard one city, 600% rise in crime. I don't know how people live there. We're not looking here at incompetent people. We are looking at psychotics. We're looking at insanity. Don't confuse this with incompetence. This is insanity. This is the destruction of civilization. You see? And then the guns on the streets, they used to have a police force that took away guns in New York, and they disbanded that. Because you have lunatics for politicians. You see? We know who they are in New York. This never happened before. How could this happen? It hasn't happened in 230 years of American history. And all of a sudden, not only is it happening, it's accepted. And now, of course, there's protests and so on. Impossible. Nobody could ever have predicted that America would turn a zoo, wild animals. And it happened. Why? Because this is the Mabul. Now you know why. But what the Bonsham did is incredible. He actually got America to destroy America. So there is no other way to explain how are these people dominating to such an extent. You see. And it's not only crime, and then there's the border, what's happening at the border. It's insane. They stopped the war, which would have stopped all this. All that dope is coming across the border, all the criminals, right? It's unbelievable. How can anybody in his right mind? Now you have other stuff happening, which is real destruction. CRT in schools, right? Critical race theory, they're teaching kids. It's now destroying the next generation. It's not only focusing on this, you see, but they're taking kids, 7-year-old, 5 years old, and teaching them, right? that this is a racist country, which of course is idiotic. Now, I can explain that people don't understand. Let me tell you something, the tremendous mistake that is made in America. There used to be an argument on slavery. Well, the Bible condones slavery. Mishpatim, ki sikne eved ivri. Right? It says that black and white, and they're all laws. There's an eved ivri. There's an eved kanani. So maybe they're right. If the Bible condones slavery, which doesn't make sense even, so people said we can have slaves. They don't know what they're talking about. This is one of the greatest distortions ever known. The Bible doesn't condone slavery. Everybody what a slave was an employee that offered himself up for money. And Eved Ivri, you didn't take him against his will. You didn't kidnap him. You paid the guy. So he allowed that you have full use of his productivity, right, for the daytime. Then at night he used to go home, whatever. And even if he didn't go home, you didn't own him. But whatever he did was now you owned. He sold that to you. The same thing with an Eved Kanani, Canaanite slave, and the same thing with a goy. You couldn't kidnap a goy and make him a slave. Excuse me. That's kidnapping. But if a goy comes over to you, a non-Jew, and says, I'm broke. Give me 50 grand. Right? And I will be your slave, or actually it's really servant, for a year. So the Bible said, okay, fine. That's what you want to do. So in many ways, there are different gradations of employment. There's a guy who worked for you during the day and went home. Then the Eved Ivri that worked for you any time during the day, but you paid him for that. Then the Eved Kanani, the same thing. You gave them money. Same thing with the Eved who was a guy. What happened in America? Nobody got money. They kidnapped them from Africa. They used to go to Africa and kidnap the tribes. This isn't employment. This is kidnapping, which is chayav misa, the death penalty. That's what they don't know what they're talking about. So the problem with slavery in America is that they were all kidnapped against their will to serve. Nobody gave them money. You see? It wasn't employment in different levels. You see the tremendous mistake that America has made. And that was wrong. That America did that was wrong because it wasn't only that they were having people to serve them. That's okay as long as you pay the guy. But you can't take a guy and kidnap him against his will and then abuse him. That's called kidnapping, which is the death penalty for a guy. It's even the death penalty for a Jew. By the way, the signal in the Ten Commandments is kidnapping. It's not monetary theft. Kidnapping. In any case, this is what America makes a mistake. And they were guilty. They should never... And now they didn't kidnap the people, but they bought the slaves off to the ones who kidnapped. So you're aiding and abetting the slavery. And not only that, by taking him to your plantation or wherever the guy went, you are continuing the slavery. So you're also kidnapping the guy. Every minute that he remains in your possession without compensation is kidnapping. You see? So Americans are guilty of kidnapping. People don't understand that. That was a terrible crime. You see, that Americans did. Whatever the reason, because that was the zeitgeist, means that was the thing that they did. It was accepted. But it was a crime because it's kidnapping. So fine, God said, I do not want America to be guilty of kidnapping. So what I'm going to do is put in their hearts to get rid of it. But as a punishment for what they did, civil war. The Civil War was the atonement for American sin of kidnapping. See the way it works? And over 600,000 guys died, and it disrupted terribly the whole America. Imagine a civil war for 4 or 5 years. That's why, as an atonement for America. You see? Because God does not want to destroy America, because America will eventually be Tov Shebeisav, the good part of Esav. That's why. Interesting. However, today, that was kidnapping, which is a moral sin. Correct? Today it's not kidnapping.
Trafficking?
What?
Child trafficking?
That's certainly, America is guilty of terrible sins. Child trafficking, adult trafficking, which I hear is terrible, right? Yeah, whatever, adult trafficking and so on, right? But infanticide, they want to pass laws where a mother can kill her kid even after she gives birth. It's murder. You see? Look at what America's guilty of. But those are terrible sins to individuals. But what will destroy civilization is LGBTQ. That will destroy civilization. Because that's the end of the kids. You see? So what God has done is a marvel. We don't realize that. Because that's the only thing that explains the incredible, not urgency, the radicalness of what's happening. Can't believe this. But what he did is incredible. I'm not going to bring a flood. I'm going to unleash the animals. Who are they? The wild animals like he did in Egypt, the Oreb, right? Who are they? The liberals, the progressives, the Democratic Party. You see? I'm going to unleash them, and I will miraculously give them power, which he can do, which he did. And in order to make sure that they will destroy America, because God knows nobody's going to vote for these crazies, right? God comes up with a brilliant plan. Well, what's the plan? How do you do it? Because God has to work with nature. How? He makes sure that there's going to be a president that's going to be a puppet to these people. Biden. Why do you think Biden, in order to make sure that Biden gets elected? COVID. You see. COVID enabled Biden to become the president because he was in the basement, never had to campaign. So nobody really knew who he was. You believe a guy doesn't have to campaign? He stayed in his basement. Not only that, why can't you vote for Biden? Senile. Not only that, he's a thief. He stole from Ukraine, he admitted it. China, Russia, and so on. It's a thief. It's a crook. A 30-year a thief. Him and his son, Hunter. Not only that, what has he done in the 48 years, 47 years that he's been in the halls of Congress and so on, right? Nothing. You know? How does a man like that become the president of the United States? It is impossible. And the Malachim told him, I would get a kick out of this. There's a kitrug. This isn't done immediately. There's a whole court case, right? And God is saying to the Malachim, you know, he's holding court, right? Okay, I'm going to unleash the third aspect of Esau, the evil of Esau, much worse, all right? And they're going to be unleashed. So the Malachim say, impossible. Possible. You know, I mean, not that they question God, but they say, we can't believe you can do this. So God says, don't worry. How am I going to do this? Biden. Because Biden is the president, and he's legally the president, and whatever he does, signs, is into law. It's unbelievable. And he will be a puppet. So the Malachim say, wait a minute. Nobody's going to vote for Biden in his right mind. Not what Trump did. And Trump did incredible for America. So not only does Biden have all the negatives, he can't be a guy like Trump. That's what the Malachim say to the Rebbe. The Rebbe says, what are you worried about? I'm God. I can do whatever I want. So lo and behold, out comes COVID. Therefore, it did many things. It enabled Biden to stay in his basement. It enabled Biden to do what? To blame Trump for killing people, which is what he did. More than that, it destroyed the economy, which is Trump's signature. But it really did bad because it enabled mail-in ballots. It's unbelievable what God did. When you look at the chess pieces, it's not one piece. Don't you see how they all enable the marble? Biden, progressives, Democratic Party, you see? And now, lo and behold, Biden is a puppet, you see? It's astounding how America would never have done this, you see? But when you add up all these pieces of the puzzle, Biden is president. And what keeps him in president is the media. The media has no idea of the punishment that they are going to get. Because they're all Mitzi Shemra. They all lie. Everything they say is a lie, you see. Besides the fact that they support a man who they know is completely incapable of being a president. So it's a deception against the entire America. So there you are. We are in the middle of a marble. This isn't just happened to be like that. So from January 20th, right, until now, America's not the same country we knew. It's a different country. But what's crazy about it is it's psychotic. They do things that make no sense to promote a civilization. Why? Because the Hashem said, I need to destroy America. The real question is, how long will that go on? Because, because the Hashem says, I need Trump back. Because America is part of the Messianic process. Look how much Trump did for Israel. Incredible what he did. It's unheard of. You know? He's not even Jewish. You know? It's true, he has a daughter-in-law. That's Ivanka. Daughter. A daughter, daughter, and Jared. Jared Kushner. What? Well, but so you heard this? I mean, Ivanka, she's Jewish, and so on. So Trump, he loves Jews. You realize that if you look at his soul, he loves Jews. I'm telling you, it's not normal. That a man of his stature and his nature, who's such a combative individual, should love Jews. But anyway, God did special things for him. Like I say, first of all, he was in real estate, Trump, and guess what? Guess who was all the people in real estate are the Jews. They were. So he knew all the Jews. He's partners with the Jews, right? And they worked for him. The guy who was the CFO is now indicted, whatever, he's Jewish, whatever, and so on, But what Ivanka told him, so Trump came over to Ivanka, and he said to her, I really like the Jews. I want to become Jewish. Said that to Ivanka. So Ivanka says, no way. So Trump said to her, why not? Because she said to him, if you become Jewish, who am I going to sell my chametz to? It's very practical. Right? So therefore, I'm glad you appreciate that. I thought it was very funny myself. But anyway, and she probably does. She probably sells it to her father. Sounds funny.
But I heard you became Jewish.
I can't. I don't believe that. No, he doesn't do any mitzvahs. How can he become Jewish? No, that's not Judaism. To become Judaism, you have to accept the Taryag mitzvahs. He doesn't. So I think that was it. Well, maybe they say you might as well become Jewish. You're doing so much with the Jews. No? But in any case, so really when you think about that, this is really what is happening, you see. So you look at America, you can't believe what's going on. Like I say, you have the borders and you see the complete domination of these people, the evil of Esau. The House is Democratic. The House. The Senate is Democratic because of Kamala Harris, right? The cities are Democratic. It's unbelievable that when God does something, get out of his way, because that's what he does. Like he said to the Malachim, what's wrong? I'm God. Don't worry about it. Because they look at this, they say, it's impossible. America isn't stupid. They don't do this. But you see the incredible dominance of the Democratic Party, of the whole evil of Esau, you see. And the reason for that, like I say, is because of the concept of the LGBTQ and so on, And anyway, and this is the model, and so on. Now, where do you see this? On 9/11, right? A long time ago. Actually, 9/11, 20 years. Wow, it's going to be 20 years. The Haftorah of 9/11 was Parshas Nitzavim. Everybody with me? Mm-hmm. You're going to enjoy this. It was 9/11. The Haftorah was Parshas Nitzavim. If you look at the Haftorah of Nitzavim, very interesting parsha. Here's what it says. It says that Yeshayahu HaNavi was saw a nevuah. That means he sees a vision. Nevuah often had a vision as well as the interpretation of the vision. So he sees God, if I remember correctly, riding on a horse, covered in red clothing, splattered in blood. That's what it was. So Yeshayahu Navi got very nervous. Because when God is coming, when the vision of God is a being, a deity, that's covered in blood, war, that's what it means. Somebody's head is going to roll. That's what it means, right? So he was very nervous. So the Moshe told him, don't worry. This isn't for the Jews. Then why you look like this? So God says, I've just come from Edom, and I crushed them like a winemaker. Remember they used to step on the grapes?
Yeah.
That's how they used to do it, right? And how people drank from that. I hope they cleaned their feet. But anyway, but in any case, so God said, I just crushed Edom, right? Like a winemaker crushes his grapes. And all that grapes, the grape juice came out and splattered on my clothing, right? That's exactly what happened on 9/11. They got crushed, right? That's Mamish Torah of 9/11. What do we see? That in the end of time, God will crush Edom. What crush Edom? Which Edom? Because I just told you there are three parts that were represented initially by three, right? Which part is he going to crush? The evil of Edom. That's who he's going to crush. Those are not the Torah of Esav. He's going to crush the bad part of Esav. That's why he threw Hillary right out, whatever. And he's going to crush these people who are worse than the Clintons. They are the evil, you see. So we know that's going to happen, you see. But when you think about it, this is really what's going on. And the amazing thing is the concept of communism. They, the progressive, want to introduce communism. But I just said that communism is the worst part of Esav, is the evil. So lo and behold, that's exactly what they want to do. Look how consistent all this is. You know what I'm saying? Look how consistent. Russia was communism, and that's why they were so evil. That's exactly what these people, Antifa, right, BLM, and so on. And as I mentioned, it's very bad because now they want to have, a critical race theory. You want to destroy the children. The media is completely filled with lies. But it's more than that. It's the universities and the colleges. They're all left. They're all liberal. It's terrible and progressive. You know what I'm saying? So this is also as part of it. And America is turning left. It's incredible to watch how, rational people can become irrational. You can only explain this. This is the Gzera, the decree of God, that these evil of Esav should destroy America. And they are, especially with the teaching kids in school, critical race theory, and colleges, and so on. It's unbelievable. And they're not only doing that, they've erased gender. They erase gender. A kid in elementary school can say, I want to be a little girl. I've always wanted to be a little girl, right? I don't even a boy, And I think they were able to have a sex operation without the parents' approval, if I remember correctly. It's beyond even if you allowed that, you can't allow it to a little kid. What does he know?
The father's being sued for putting his boy in pants when the mother wants the boy in the dress.
Yeah.
Went to court.
Yeah. What we're watching is psychotic. It's not normal. It's irrational. And the answer to that, because this is the model. It's amazing what Rabbi did. He set up a whole series of events, you see, in order to make this happen. You see. Now, what's also interesting is this also. We have two attributes of God. It's called Tiferes and Oiz. Tiferes is beauty, Oiz is might. What are they really? Tiferes is beauty of civilization. Beauty of civilization. And what is might? Might is success. It doesn't only mean military. It means tremendous success. Oiz, that's what beauty and might really is. Who has it? We used to have it. We don't have it anymore. You see? Who has that? It is America that has the beauty and might. I remember I once drove past there while I was giving the Shiur in those years, and I drove past Monmouth College. Mm-hmm. I remember I said to myself, what is this? It's a nobody college. I mean, how many people have heard of Monmouth College? Think about that, right? It could be people living in Deal don't even hear about Monmouth College. It's a nobody college in the rank of colleges, right? Did you ever look at that place? It's magnificent. You went there, right? So you can testify. It's magnificent. What is this? Now, then you drive past a shul. Then you drive past a shul and you say, excuse me, is this a shul? I thought it was an outhouse, right? Or something like that, Now, fortunately, a lot of shuls are now much better. They look beautiful, I must say, But they don't care. They don't come to what's called the fanem, the majesty of colleges, Harvard, MIT, Stanford. These are major institutions in the world. Any college is I live in Lakewood, New Jersey, right? So there's a college there called Georgian Court, right? Did you ever see the size of that campus? It's unbelievable. And nobody ever heard of Georgian Court. You know what I'm saying? So why is it that they look like this? And Lakewood Yeshiva, BMG, right, basement Hashkafa, they have nice buildings, but they're spread all over Lakewood. Why can't they get their act together and put it in one place? Because the Tiferes and Oyes is with the Goyim, not with the Jews. You see. You want to know where Tiferes and Oyes was? Drive down Fifth Avenue. Right? Madison Avenue, right? That's where it is. That's the Tiferes and the Oyes, right? The success and the intellectual, the wisdom of American colleges and universities. But did you notice what happened in the last year? It's gone. New York looks like a cesspool. But wait a minute. What happened to the Tiferes and the Oyes? Oh, that's the good news. Because what the Voishim says, I can't give Israel, the Jewish people, the Tiferes and the Oyes, right? I have to take it away from the Goyim. Because when the Goyim have it, who really has it? The Satan. Because the Satan takes what we have when we don't deserve it. Right? So they have it. So God says, wait a minute, before I do that, I got to take it away from them. Why? Because that indicates that the Tiferes and Oyes now belongs to the Jew. It indicates that the Yanika, what the Satan has been taken from the Jewish soul, is now back in the hands of the Jews and not in the hands of the Satan. He's bankrupt. That's what you're looking at. New York that looks, right, like a hovel. It means that Tiferes and the Oyes is gone, but it's not just New York. It's San Francisco. It's Portland. You know what I'm saying? It's Los Angeles with 1,000 tents all over the place, with the homeless and the drug addicts and everybody, And it's in many cities. And they're growing the homeless and the drug addicts, and whatever. Because the Tiferes and the Oyes is now leaving Edom. Where do we see this? How do we know it was in their hands? Because in Tachnun we say, every Shachos, Ad Mosai Uschu Bashvi, how long will your Oyes, your might, be in captivity? V'sef Altcho, and your beauty, B'yatzo, in the hands of the enemy. That's where it is. That's the Golus. That's the beauty and the beauty and the magnificence of the Jewish people when they are the Mamlechas Kohanim, right? They have it. You see? And the Goyim were always primitive. But now they have it. Edom has it. And now we see it's being taken away. That's a very good sign. Because it means that it's over. That means it's slowly come back to the Jews. You see? This is what happens.
We pray every week. Hashem oz ve'amo yitem. Hashem yivarech et amo b'shalom.
Yes.
So now Hashem gives that to us.
Yes.
And then we'll have peace, God willing.
And you ever notice what it says in the Birchas HaShachar? You make the brachas in the morning, the Shachar, the brachas. Oize Yisrael b'gvura. Right? Oite Yisrael b'siv ora. That's it. That's the Tiferes and the Oyes. You see, that's our Yerusha. In fact, if you ask yourselves, wait a minute, when they had it, what was the origin? And the answer is, it's ours. The Tiferes and the Oyes belong to the Jews. We don't deserve it. The Satan took it, and he gives it to his Umas Ha'olam, the nations of the world. You see? So therefore comes out that the Tiferes and Oyes that we have is what they have is really ours. That's the Churban.
Don't they say that all the universities are going to end up turning into yeshivot and synagogues? And then they said that MetLife Stadium was a perfect example of the beginning of it, because when they did the siyum of the Gemara, it filled with so many Jews, and it made like such a big Kiddush Hashem. They said that was just the beginning of the wheel turning something that was Satan.
In any case, so here's the good news. It's okay. Here's the good news. I know it's a long shiur, but maybe it was worth it. Here's the good news. This is the good news. The relationship that we have with Esau is a seesaw. We know that because it says when Rivka went to find the prophecy, why was there such turmoil inside her? So she went to the Shem Va'eva, and he told her the following, right? A whole bunch of prophecies, right? Shnei goyim b'vitneach. There are two great nations within you, right? They will be split from Yimei Ayach Yiparedu, and both will split from you, go there either way. And then it says, and one nation will be greater than the other, which means that when one nation is great, the other one is always inferior. It's a seesaw. And when the other nation is great, then this nation will be inferior. They'll never be equal. The great news that I want to tell you is that if we see America being destroyed, which I don't believe it will, God will stop it. This is just the Mabul. Mabul has to punish these people and so on, That means that if it's being, if there's a seesaw, that means that if they are going down, then it must mean that we are rising. Because that's our relationship with Edom, Esau. Isn't that true? It's in the Torah. So if that's the case, then what we're watching in America is incredible news for Jews. Think about that. Because when they go down, we must rise, because that is the relationship that we have with them. It's not like they can go big and we can go big, or they can go small and we remain small. No. It's a seesaw. In English, it's called a reciprocal relationship. When A is big, B is small. You see? It's an inverse. That's what it's called. That's what's happening. So therefore, as a result of that, right, we are going up. Yes. We don't know exactly how, but there will come a time when when the decree is over, and it's only a matter of time, that God will say, enough, I will now begin the upward swing of the muzzle of the Jewish people. And then all of a sudden, we go up. And it's going to happen overnight. You won't even know it hit you. Something will happen, right, that comes out of nowhere. And everybody realizes there's something going on, you see? And then from then, it begins to grow, and grow, you see? What we're waiting for is not even the growth. What we're waiting for is the turnaround. Turnaround. When does it stop going their way, and when does it begin going our way? Once that happens, it's like one said, it's irreversible, and it is unstoppable. That's the end. That's Be'itoi, you see. So you could say, until America was being destroyed, I would never believe. So America still has personas, right? But we know it has to be taken away from them, you see. And we're watching it. We see and we cannot believe what we're looking at, that America's falling apart with irrational, psychotic ideas. That makes sense. The whole world has to be laughing at America. You see? They have to be laughing at that. You see? Now, I'm not saying, which I want to add, I'm not saying that in a certain sense they're not right. They are right, but they have over-exaggerated their points. America was wrong when they did that, allowed kidnapped people to be slaves. What kind of abuse is that? And it's Chayav Misa, you see? And they deserve that. That was why the Civil War happened. But not only, America has changed. I mean, most cops, I think, are black. It's incredible. There are blacks in so many different positions. I remember I heard on the radio, a black was saying, he says, what are they, crazy? There's no racism in America. I have 2 medical degrees. The guy said, How can I have 2 medical degrees if there's slavery or whatever racism, Because it's idiotic. It's being used as a ploy in order to promote people who are the evil of Esau, who want to dominate and have power. That's what it's for. And Americans are fools. America has changed. Now, it is true there are pockets of racism. That is true. But I want to tell you something, which is very important. What I believe is the origin of racism. And people will not tell you this. I want to tell you where it comes from. I remember 50 years ago, maybe 60 years ago, when the mafia was known. People knew about the mafia because then they were very big. The RICO Act had not been passed, whatever, and so on, So I remember that, if you would meet an Italian, I always said to myself, is he part of the mafia? Why? Because they were stereotyped. The mafia stereotyped Italians. So they were so prominent because, it was all over the news, Carlo Campino and Vince Gotti, what's his first name, whatever, John Gotti. They were all over the news. They call him Dapper Don or something like that. So when you met an Italian, somehow you asked yourself, is he part of the mafia? Do I have to watch out with him? Will I be rubbed out also? Why? Because the mafia had stereotyped the Italians. Fortunately, that's gone because the mafia is basically gone. Although they're not really gone, they're hidden. They're into all kinds of businesses, but they're not as prominent because of the RICO Act. Because now you can get a guy just by being part of the syndicate, even if he hasn't committed a crime. Whatever. It changed the whole law. But in any case, here's the problem with blacks. They are stereotyped. Why? Do you know that 70% of black families have no male figure in the house? There's no father. There's no father. For whatever reason, either because you never married the mother, or you abandoned the mother, or whatever. 70%. So guess what? If you don't have a male in the house, right, and you have kids growing up, so you can control them until they're about 8 years old. But by the time they hit 9, 10, 11, 12, teenagers, forget it. You can't control them. So what do? They hang out. And when they hang out, we know who they hang out with, so they commit crimes. You see, I once heard a statistic. If I remember correctly, it's like 50% of crimes committed are committed by blacks. But blacks are only 13% of the country. Doesn't make sense, does it? 13% of the population of the country are black, yet 50% or maybe 60, I don't recall the exact, but it was a staggering statistic. You see, it was 3 times the amount or maybe 4 times the amount of population, right? So therefore, most crimes, not most, but an enormous amount of crimes are committed by blacks. Do you know blacks dying left and right today? You know who kills them? Blacks. 90% of all black crime, guess who the perpetrator is? Another black. They're killing themselves, you see? So what has happened is this, is because of these 2 statistics, that black people, 70% of the fathers are gone, and the mothers can't control their kids. So of course they will become criminals, because that's where they hang out, right? So that's number one. And because there's so many, and because they commit so many crimes, way out of their proportion, out of their numbers, they have become stereotyped. So when you meet a black in the street, what do you begin to think about? Is he going to steal from me? Rob me? You see, your whole perspective has been distorted because they have destroyed their reputation. It's their fault. Now, what could they do? It's an important idea. The stereotyping of blacks or the racism, whatever's left of it, because an enormous amount has been gone, is their fault. So what can be done? Black leaders, they don't say a word. What's destroying the black community is themselves, because they have stereotyped themselves into being criminal. Or, it's like the old mafia business, right? But fortunately, that's gone. But, if so much crime is committed by black, of course if I meet a black, I'm going to ask myself, can I hire it? Is he going to steal from me? Or whatever. This is why there's racism. Whatever's left, this is why. And you know who's responsible for this? Not just the black families. It's the black leaders. The joke, the BLM. which is a joke. Why aren't they screaming about what's happening in Chicago, right? Or that 100 people are shot over a weekend? You know what I'm saying? Murdered and so on, Nobody says anything. Or why don't they scream? Say, wait a minute, are you crazy? Why are fathers abandoning their families? Kids grow up without a father, and they're growing up without a father. I'm not talking about teenagers, who are grown up and so on, and had a father. Now, there are some blacks who did. The guy Thomas Sowell, he was a conservative black. I think he pointed it out. But this is what it is. Their fault. Because they have so destroyed the image and the reputation of blacks because of the rampant crime. You see? That's why. And of course, the kid grows up without a father, right? Then, it's not like he can be taught morals and character traits. It's much harder for him to turn out. Now, thank God there are blacks that have made it, and so on. But the majority, no. You see? And so what are they into? They're into drugs. You see? They're into all of this kind of stuff. You see? And that's why. I believe that's the real truth. They will never admit it because they'd much rather blame the whites. And this concept of white supremacy is idiotic. Yeah, of course they are white supremacists, but they're an incredibly small minority in the United States. The reason is many people are afraid of blacks because of the stereotyping. Listen, ask yourself, if it's nighttime and it's 11 o'clock at night, right, and you're walking down the street and there's nobody in the street, and there's somebody coming your way and he's black, what's your thought?
I'm scared.
You're scared. Why? Isn't that racist? No, it's not racist. Because if so many blacks are doing crime out of their proportion. That's the proof. People don't get scared because a person walks by. If it was a white guy walking by, you wouldn't be scared. They don't understand it. They're not interested in understanding this because they want to blame whites. Why do they want to blame whites? Because they want to control whites. They want power. That's the whole name of the game for the BLM, right? And for the Antifa, and for all those blacks that are part of this group, and so on, movement and so on. You see? What was that?
A lot of Jews are part of that group.
Which group?
BLM, they'll go to the protest.
That's the old story, because they feel guilty. Yeah, because you try to identify with the perpetrator so you don't feel guilty that you're not doing it. There's a lot of guilt in that. But anyway, I just wanted to comment on that, what's happening. But the overall idea is that these people are destroying America. BLM, Antifa, and the Democratic mayors. It's unbelievable what de Blasio has. He ought to get a medal. He got a medal for the worst mayor in New York history. What he's done, and it's amazing to watch him. He is so full of himself. You ever watch his smirk on his face? He thinks he's God's gift to the planet. Why else would a mayor want to run for president after he's just, a couple of months in office? What kind of arrogance does that take, And Cuomo, he's off the charts in terms of being an unbelievable megalomaniac, He doesn't even care that he murdered 15,000 people. Look, they'll all get theirs. God doesn't forget. God has a very good memory. Doesn't forget. And he really has incredible power. Look what he did for Biden. Imagine a guy can get Biden in. It is not, people don't understand. Biden is a living miracle. He's a Nes Niglo. How a man like that can become president of the United States in today's time. That's what God wants. Anyway, so that's the good news. Is hopefully this Tisha B'Av will be different. Maybe. Because as Edom is on his way down, it must be, according to the Torah, that the Jewish people are on the way up. Now, we know it's going to happen, but we don't know when, but it's going to happen. And when it does, you're going to smile. Why? Because you're going to say that, I heard this from Rabbi Mendel Kessin. Thank you.
Well, you said a lot of things.
I did.
I
said a lot of things. What?
What stuck in my head was, if Obama gets into office and they accept all these gays. Now, when you're born, you can go this way or that way.
Yeah.
Now, society shuns that, so it keeps you suppressed. But now society is open to it.
What you're saying is a very important idea, and I once said that a long time ago. It's good, great. Wow, that is an incredible compliment that you remember what I said. What I said is this: how do you understand that most of the Greeks were homosexuals? Doesn't make sense. Yeah, if homosexuality is a disease or a dysfunction, whatever you want to call it, how can you have a whole society doing that? One or two, a couple of people, whatever. You don't have a whole country doing this. And it's not the Greeks only. It's the Romans also. So what's the answer? So here's the answer. And Floyd said this. Because everybody who's born is born as a bisexual. Yeah. What shunts us to a certain direction is the society, the mores. That's what does it. So if we grow up in a society, right, that says homosexuality, are you crazy? Only heterosexuality, right? So we actually learn to channel our desires or drives in that direction. Interesting. But what happens if there's a society that says, hey, it's okay to do whatever you want? You're bi. In fact, LGB is bi. The B in LGB is the bi, right? So everybody's born bi. It's interesting to know that, you know. So the question is, but the problem is this. If you're with a guy, hey, and you're a guy, you're with a guy, there's no reproduction going on here. At the end of society, you know. With girls, it's not as bad, you know. So therefore, girls don't have that semavera, whatever. But if you're with a guy, then of course that's the end of reproduction. So therefore, that destroys civilization. So therefore, the direction a person takes depends on the society he grows. Yeah. For what happens all of a sudden if the society is okay with either way? Then why should you go one way? You can go two ways. You can, as they say, you can buy. You got it either way, right? Why? Because you're not steered in the direction of, you know, homosexuality. That's the destruction. Because almost all these guys who are bi, right, would all become heterosexual. So what America is doing is saying that anybody who has that can now be either one. They are granting permission for a guy to go to the homosexuality, whether it be man or woman, right? So they are destroying people that would never have been homosexual. That's the incredible sin that they're doing. You see? That's why all Greece was homosexual. I don't know all of them, but you know, because it was okay. In fact, they held it was beneath them to be with a woman. And unfortunately, the only way you can have kids is if you're with a woman. But they held it was beneath them. Believe this? You know? Everybody had his little boy, what they're doing, or his guy, or whatever he had, you see? I don't know what the women were doing, but the guys were certainly doing that. That's why when you walk in Greece, there's so many statues of naked men. It's like, excuse me, what is this, a fetish of some sort? You know? I mean, like, what, are you crazy? You have nothing else better to do than this? You know? Yeah, that's why. They adored the human body. I'm not talking about Sparta. Sparta was crazy. They said, you know, it's man, and they trained for war from the day they were born. They were already training for war, and so on, and to develop the human body. But that's why the Greeks have so many statues, and Rome also, because Rome took right after the Greeks. They all had their, you know, their little kids and so on, whatever. You know, and that's why you see so many, naked men. It's unbelievable what these guys were, you know. What is so anathema to Judaism, don't have these kind of statues, right? This is like lauded and cheered by the civilizations. You see? The same thing with paintings. You know, all their paintings have naked women. I mean, you have nothing better to paint, you know? And that's what they did, because that's what they admired and so on, you know? You know? Find it interesting that it was the men that painted the naked women. Makes sense. Anyway, no, but which was interesting and so on, you know. But that's why. That's what they admired. So that's the terrible havoc that America is wreaking on America and the world, you see, because all those guys who would have become heterosexual are now becoming homosexual. Because it's not only allowed, it is admired, and it is preferred. Can't believe what's happening to America. So I knew it was only a matter of time until God says, enough is enough. But the way he did it was incredible. People don't understand. What we are looking at, in summary, is the Mabul. And God brought about a Mabul. Not that he has to bring water. He's going to let the evil part of it destroy America until he says enough. And now I'm going to bring back the Tov Shebei Yisav. That is what is happening. You now understand it. And the consistency of this is because the evil of Edom was Russia, communism. That's exactly what the progressives want to promote. Communism, socialism. It's amazing. Yes.
Cuba wants to get rid of it.
Well,
because they don't know what to say.
Look, you take a guy like Castro. Castro is one of the most evil people that ever lived. You know, it's astounding. You know, maybe he started out idealistic because he went against Batista. Any Cubans here, by the way? There was a guy Batista. That guy was as corrupt as they come. You know, so he was right. Cut this out. So Castro, if I remember correctly, in 1959, he rebelled. But what did he do? He was worse than the Batista. Because at least Batista, he was corrupt for himself. But everybody in Cuba was doing great. They were opening up all kinds of gambling casinos in Cuba in the 40s. The mafias were all there, you know. And then along comes this guy. You know, I mean, you ever see these guys driving around with 1950 cars? It's astounding how they get the parts. Yeah, because you can't afford a 2001. They're driving around with cars that are 70 years old. You don't know how bad these guys are. And there's no medicine, and there's no food. And you know how many people have been convicted and sent to jail for nothing, for 20, 30 years. We cannot even fathom the evil of these people. You see? I'll tell you one thing. There's one reason why I know that the future world will be eternal. You know how I know? Because Gehenna is eternal. Why? Because these people have earned enough to be in Gehenna for eternity. Therefore, if Gehenna is eternal, then so is Olam Haba. But the truth is, it's not eternal. Gehenna ends when Olam Haba starts. So obviously, they're going to give a guy an eternity of unbelievable suffering in a very short amount of time. And only God can pull that off.
What do you say about the vaccine?
What?
The vaccine.
I'm okay with that. I took it. There's all kinds, I know. A lot of, well, I don't know. They're all conspiracy theories. I don't know.
My daughter's friend has 2 kids. She was pregnant, mid-pregnancy.
Oh, she took the vaccine. See, that I would not have advised. What? Hey, but we don't know if it's because of that. And I would not have advised. No, we don't know if she lost because of COVID, because of vaccine. We don't know. I mean, it's an association, but I don't know if it's a cause.
Or to be reported has that occurred within, like, I think it's 3 days. Yeah, but according to the
You know what the problem is? Nobody really knows. We live in a generation that nobody knows. Yeah, but I don't want to. Yeah, look, I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I'm not of that anyway. But so I don't. But the truth is, nobody really knows. This vaccine is so recent. It is so recent that nobody really knows what the results are. You know, I hear all kinds of stories. You know, I can just tell you, I took it. I thank God I took it, and my wife took it, and that's it. Thank God. You know, I walk around without a mask and so on. You know, I hope it's okay. I don't believe that I can't believe that God is going to allow a vaccine that will destroy half of mankind. That can do that. It doesn't make sense.
But that's what Mashiach will come, and he'll save all of us. So we don't have to worry about it.
But okay, it was against my will,
but anyway,
But how about the kids that are taking it?
Yeah, so I don't know. I cannot have an opinion. I took it, and I'm glad I took it.
Okay,
that's it. I don't know what to tell you.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway.
So, last year when we had the Tisha B'Av class, a class on Churban, you were saying how it's every year that Tisha B'Av passes and the Beit HaMikdash is not rebuilt, it's as if it's
that was the last year's year.
Right.
You wanted me to repeat that?
No. So my question is that let's say this year is different. What will happen? Because the Beit HaMikdash is not going to come down without the Mashiach here. So what should we expect to happen if it could be different this year?
What could it be?
Like, in order for the Beit HaMikdash to be rebuilt, doesn't Mashiach ben Yosef have to be here already?
Yes.
Okay, so he's not here. So, no. I mean, we have 4 days until he comes. You know what I'm saying? So if he's not here, what could be different from this Tisha B'Av? What could happen that we could be like, oh, you know what I mean?
So yeah, what you're asking is, what's the initial sign?
Yeah, that to say that this Tisha B'Av was the turning point, because really we're mourning the Churban, but it's.
That's a very good question, but one thing will certainly happen. The question is if the second thing will happen. What I call the initial sign. So what will definitely happen is whoever is the Messiah, the Mashiach, he will know. However, God will talk to him, because if the Rebbe Shem talked to Moshe Rabbeinu, which he did by the snap, how did Moshe know who he was? You need the Rebbe Shem to authorize that. Mm-hmm. No sign can authorize a man being the Messiah. Okay, who it is. That's why the Rebbe Shem had to appear to him miraculously in a burning bush and said, you are the man. And he argued with him for a week. See? That's how Moshe Rabbeinu knew he was the Mashiach. You know? A lot of people, there's a thing called the Jerusalem syndrome, by the way. People who come to Jerusalem and all of a sudden, I'm the Messiah. Actually, it's called the syndrome. You know? It's like, wow. So he will know. How he will know, we don't know. But it will be some type of, obviously, some type of miraculous event. You know, how will everybody know? I don't think they will know, because he himself now has to capitalize on the fact that he is the Messiah. Means whatever he touches will turn to gold. That's what it means.
How do we know it didn't happen yet?
What?
How do we know it didn't happen?
We don't.
Exactly.
It could have happened.
It could have happened.
Yes, it could have happened on Rosh Chodesh. Oh yeah, you're right. Could have happened. But we won't know, because he has to change. He has to transform. And then through his transformation, we will transform. See? The only thing that I could say is what has to precede that transformation, or what has to precede the moment that he knows. And what I see, this destruction of America, it precedes. That's what this whole shit was about. This is the marvel. And I brought you ample proof, Katrina, everything, and so on, you know. That's what we can see, you know. But the next step, as they say, is around the corner. You don't have the view of around the corner. You see? In other words, we're walking down the block, and we just see to the corner. You cannot see the turn. But that turn will mean that he knows, and then the Jews clearly will know. Will they know when he knows? Well, they may know when they come in his presence, because this guy is not this guy. The Mashiach is not going to be a normal person. You know, even when he's released, he is not a normal person. He will be clearly doing things which are completely out of character, either to what he was before, obviously, because before that, he was basically figuratively a prisoner. He was a person who was completely trapped in his ability to grow spiritually. So the next day, when he wakes up in the morning, you know, he'll probably jump out of bed and say, wow, I can't believe it. I'm the guy that everybody's waiting for 5,781 years. Wow, you know. And then when it simmers down a little, he says, wait a minute, I got to give it some thought, right? What am I supposed to do now, you know? But in some way he will know, you know. And then once he begins meeting people, you will know, this guy's an interesting guy. He's not this. He's different, you know? And in the beginning, it may be hard to put your finger on it. How is he different? But there will be a difference. It has to be, because he's the Messiah that has the Yechidah of the nation. This is not a normal guy. He's not normal. So even at his lowest point, he has to be extraordinary.
So this Tisha B'Av, we're still going to technically mourn the Beit HaMikdash because we don't see it in our physical eye of the presence of the Mashiach yet.
Yeah. But one thing is interesting. Why is Tisha B'Av a good time? Because it says that the Mashiach ben David is born on Tisha B'Av. Now we know why. Because it's because of the merit of the Jews observing Tisha B'Av. So in that merit, that's how he's born. So it's not that he's literally born on that day, but the merit of that day is what gives the merit of him to be born. That's what what it means on. But maybe he's born on that day, or maybe the turning point is that day. Birth doesn't mean when he crawled out into this world. Yeah, that's birth. You see, because he has been released. Really, what it is a true birth. From one stage to another stage is a true transformation. That's a birth. You know, it's like people say, guys will wake up to Christianity. I've been born again. The born again Christians. Mm-hmm. They use the word born again because it's true. It's a completely different transformation. So they can use the word what? Yeah. That's right, like a metamorphosis. Exactly, So that will happen. If you meet the guy after, which could be Tisha B'Av, because Tisha B'Av it says that he's born. So there are different ways of interpreting that. But we can interpret it that that's when it happens, on Tisha B'Av. So that's what it means, we from darkness to light. On the day itself, of darkness, that day turns light. That would be completely consistent with the way God does things. He does that. He doesn't wait, but all of a sudden, in the midst of the darkness, you know what the proof of that is? Gracious. Because it says, Gracious Borokim, in the beginning God created, right? Shema Ba'aretz, Ba'aretz Ha'yis V'soyim, and there was darkness on the face of the deep. Ruach Lakim, and the Spirit of God, hovers over the face of the water. So the Baal HaTurim says that the gematria of Ruach Elokim Rachefes is gematria. It's amazing, I figured this out. Zuhi, this is Ruach Shel Melech HaMashiach. This means the Spirit of the Messiah. That means Ruach Elokim Rachefes. Who's the Ruach Elokim? The Spirit of God. That's the Mashiach. And it says he hovers, right, in the middle of the darkness. Choshech, Apnei Sahoim. And this being, the Shema, Mashiach, is hovering in the darkness over the face of the deep. And then what does it say? Ayom Elakim, he or out of nowhere. There's no preparation. He or, there to be light. All of a sudden, the darkness instantly disappears, and there's light. So that pasuk, in many ways, reveals many things. One is that he will be floating in the middle of darkness, which is a nightmare for him, right? Because that's what it is. That's his klipa in the middle of the darkness. But his release will be spontaneous and spectacular. So I would imagine if you meet him the next day, you may not know who he is, but you're going to say, wow, who was he?
That's Hashem. I hope to meet him.
Yes.
And Moshe had to wear a mask.
Yes, because
The veil.
No, a mask. Yeah, mask.
It was the hat that covered his face.
Well, I don't know what it looked like, but it was a mask.
They didn't want to recognize it. Have you COVID mask followed?
The COVID mask.
Who is that?
Yeah, he had to escape COVID, right?
So they said that they found today, they just put it on Instagram, that they found the wall from the first Beit HaMikdash from Nebuchadnezzar. They were able to unearth it.
Oh, yeah?
They dug and they found 98 feet.
Really?
By 5 feet high from the first Beit HaMikdash.
Wow, that's interesting.
So a lot of things are coming. And then somebody said that they found one of the bells that were on the bottom of the Kohen Gadol's outfit.
The bells?
Yeah, one bell. They think that it came from the outfit.
The me'il. But you know what that is? You know what the bells were for?
Yeah, so he died, that means he wasn't moving, they would pull him out. No. Nobody could go to the
No, the bells were a kapora for Lashon Hara.
Oh my God. Yes, but I read it was a mammal.
Yeah, see? That was a kapora for Lashon Hara.
Yeah. Oh my God.
But also,
it's almost like when it jingled, you know, it said,
as a
reminder, be careful.
Yeah.
You know, we're hearing, you want to hear audio sounds? Listen to the bells. Don't listen to the Lashon Hara. Yeah, it was a kapora for Lashon Hara. So if they're finding the bells.
They also said that the kind of boat, you couldn't go and get him, and if they didn't hear him moving with the sounds of the bells, they knew that he died, and then they pull him out with the boat. That was also a sign.
Oh yeah, a lot of people died that way.
And also, I don't know, right now, what's going on? Like last night, you were saying that it's very dangerous. On the Washington Bridge, a person was driving 12:15 a.m. A group of people on a motorcycle surrounded him, shot him in the head, and stole the car.
Shot him in the head?
Yes,
killed
stole the car. So, I mean, there's no law and order.
Nothing.
And they don't go to jail. Everything protects only the guilty, and nothing is to protect the innocent.
You know what's astounding about it? Like I said, you know, America is not a country of infants. It's adults. They know that this will destroy civilization. What does it take Einstein to figure this out? Is that? You understand? In other words, you stare in disbelief at America. It's not like, very interesting. No, you've never seen anything like it, and you stare in disbelief of how stupid people are. And they're not kids. They're a lot of bright kids, exactly.
We're getting like external.
Yeah, they're a lot. You talk about bright people. You know, the government, they're not all stupid. A lot of them are, but they're not all stupid. Yeah, of course, there's lawyers, there's professors, and they're all screaming the same progressive stupidity. You see, what stupidity? What's this? No bail, no crime can rise. You know, of course they say, well, no. Of course.
What about the external attacks from?
You ever hear Alice in Wonderland?
Yeah.
This is Alice in Wonderland.
And what's going on right now? We have like the connection with China, and we have our own government. It's like, well, we're doing some research.
By the way, you know what China is all about? Now you know. I gave you the material. China is the evil part of Edom.
Yeah.
They're Edom.
There's a new Russia. Do you know what they did yesterday?
And they are evil, not bad, evil, right? Because they enslave their people. They're killing the Uyghurs, whatever they call themselves, and so on, you know. That's why, that's why China is growing. Because God has given dominion to the evil part of Esau. Not only the bad part, the evil part. Yeah, the Clintons were the bad part.
And yesterday they announced all over the news, my mother, everyone was like sharing it and sending it to me, that they're doing now the thing called chimeras. They're mixing people, DNA with animals. China.
Oh, the chimera. That's the chimera of Greece.
And they're
was half. Half.
No, you don't make a big. China make a baby with an animal.
That China. What?
All over the news.
They're what? What are they mixing?
It's called. They're mixing DNA
of
people with animals, and they're doing a second thing. They're also harvesting all of our DNA. And there was a big thing on Fox saying that it was because they want to make a biological weapon that targets our kind of American DNA.
Yeah. Interesting. What they're probably doing is taking the nucleus. They're probably taking the nucleus. They're taking the nucleus of the egg out of the animal and putting the nucleus into the animal, that is the DNA of the human. And they want to see what happens.
I want to make Bilam's talking donkey.
But I want to tell you something. They'll never match the wisdom of that donkey.
It's true, by the way.
I don't care what they do. That donkey was something else. That donkey could have been a professor at Harvard.
Smarter than Biden.
Oh, Biden. That's not even, well, who cares?
It's not even compliment.
But I'm just saying, so you now understand what is going on and why, But you have to stand back and just be amazed at the power of God. How in the world did God make a guy that is so unfit? I'm not even talking about his age, 78. Okay. But he's so unfit to be a president. How in the world did you voice this on the American population? It's just astounding how he did it. People don't recognize. And by the way, COVID is also the model, but it's for the rest of the world. You'll notice America is being destroyed. The rest of the world is just dying. COVID, that's the model. Because they don't have to. The what?
There was a big flood, I think it was in India, and many people drowned.
Yeah. Well, that always happens.
And they died from COVID.
Yeah.
No. Every day.
Yeah.
So right now we're looking for is how is Hashem going to pull off Trump being back in office? Is that like a bottom line? Or
it's not Trump. It's how do you turn the tables? Whether it be Trump, which I think it will be, or DeSantis, who seems to be rational, and he has seichel.
Yeah.
It's called common sense. That's all it is. I'm astounded. Big deal. On DeSantis, he has common sense, that's all. You don't have to award that. Everybody should have common sense. I mean, what is he displaying that's so supernatural?
True.
For the campaign.
It's just ridiculous when you think about that. He's just he's a guy with common sense. In the Hebrew, it's called seichel hayosher, and that's all. You have to compliment and say, wow. What do you mean, wow? That just shows how rare common sense is in America. That all of a sudden you're complimenting this guy. Wow.